Today I had the incredibly unique and rewarding opportunity to sit down with two key figures at the developer responsible for making my very favorite game, Post Scriptum. I asked them some questions about their origins and why they were so motivated to create this amazing game, as well as the future of the game to include the launch of Chapter 3 Day of Days. Enjoy. Flash out. Okay, so good afternoon, guys. First, thanks for spending the time to come and talk to me for a few minutes and share with the community and my viewers exactly what we can look forward to in Post Scriptum and in Chapter 3. Let's start off with introductions. So why don't you introduce yourself, tell us what you do at Periscope, and what you're doing on Post Scriptum. We can start with Snazzy and then go to Breiz.
Yeah, so my name is Henrik Christensen, or SnazzyDuckling. I'm the community manager here at Periscope Games. And sort of my core responsibility is, communicating between the developers and the community and getting information out to our community and ensuring that they're getting the right information and they're getting the help and support that they need. So those are kind of my core responsibilities.
Awesome.
And I'm Roman. I'm creative director and CEO at Periscope Games. So my role is I do a bit of everything. It could be modeling 3D objects, texturing them, doing some rigging or level design. And as creative director, I usually get inputs on how the game is going to play and come up with decisions on how things are going to work and how we should handle them by going into different departments in the company. So when we go on something about coding, and we'll get to those guys and say, hey, we want to do this. How do you guys want to handle it? So that's pretty much my job.
Awesome. And so I think a lot of us who have followed Post Scriptum for a while are pretty familiar with Periscope and kind of where you guys came from and your publisher. But for those people in my audience who are kind of searching for Post Scriptum for the very first time, maybe they saw a Chapter 3 reveal trailer and they're kind of looking at the game now. What is it? What is Periscope Games? Where did it come to be? And what's y'all's relationship with Off-World Industries?
So in terms of Periscope Games, the origins of Periscope Games, that's kind of a question for Breiz. But in terms of who we are as developers, the group Periscope Games is primarily a remote working place, meaning that we got developers all over the world, not just within France, because Periscope Game as a company is a French company, but the developers are from all over the world. And we, work on a remote platform. And in these trying times, that's a blessing that we have the capability to keep working almost as normal while everything is going on. But Breiz can give the rundown of exactly
on the history. It's I would not say it's very simple because it's not. Our history has been quite a lot of bumps and a lot of backstory. So we started as a modding group in January 2016. So that would be a bit more than 4 years ago now. The idea behind the mod, because when I first started, I bought Squad, I think in December 2015 when it released on Steam. And after playing countless hours of Squad during that month of December, I was like, oh man, that game would be amazing in World War II. And out of that decision, I've started modeling a few objects. I've made a Kubel wagon that we can still have in the game today. That's the first object I've ever modeled for a PS. It wasn't even called PS at that time. And the group got bigger. Daniel, he was in charge of Project Reality World War II, contacted me, said, hey man, I've seen on the forum what you're doing for Squad. I'm interested. Do you want to join forces? And we joined forces, and then we keep hiring people. When I say hiring, it's just people who are interested. They work for us for free because we didn't have any money. It was literally a hobby. I was at a very boring job at the time, and that kept me busy. So that's how we got to grow. And after 6 months, we made a very nice trailer for Squad, and people really liked it. It got the interest of Off-World Industries, and they contacted me, I think, in August, the following month, and they said, hey man, what is Post Scriptum? What do you guys want? What is your vision? So I told him, yeah, ideally it was going to be a mod, but we had a lot of ideas, and I strongly believe that in order to achieve that vision of a game, we'd need to be our own studio with money. And because at that time I left my job, so I kind of needed money to pay for food and so on.
Yeah, that kind of
So we
matters.
get bigger and bigger, and then the team who was with us from day one, most of them are still here today. We became a company, and we all have share in the company, and so does Offworld. So that's the involvement of Offworld into Periscope Games. They own a portion of the company, and they help us in the infrastructure when we need builds, when we have some questions about, hey guys, you developed this, can you explain to us? So it's mostly technical help, especially in the first 2-3 years. It took at least a year of paperwork and lawyers and all of that to get to the company working, because like Snazzy said, everyone is in a different country. So it was a ton of paperwork to get all of it done. And yeah, then we did the game released in beta. I think it was in May 2018. And yeah, the rest is history, as you'd say.
As it were. Yeah, that's awesome. I had not heard a lot of that before, although I presume some of it to be the case. I think it's reassuring to the community that this project started as a passion project from modders who loved Squad.
Yes.
And it was really cool to hear you say when you played Squad, you thought, man, this would be awesome as a World War II game, which kind of leads into the next question, which is what is Post Scriptum for those who haven't played it? And just kind of tell us about what it's supposed to be.
Well, if you asked that question maybe 2 years and a half ago, I would say it is a mod, or it is a conversion of Squad into World War II. But to what PS is, you can clearly see the connection to Squad, but you can also tell that it is its own entity, both on the gameplay aspect, on the visual, the way animations are being made. There is a very strong connection to Squad. But in the meantime, if you've played both games, you would not be lost, but you would still be like, oh yeah, that is a different game. It is not just World War II skins on top of Squad. We've been like this for the first year and a half of development, because obviously we were relying a lot on their technology. But after a few months, we had coders, and we made our own decisions, our own gameplay decisions that are quite different than Squad. So, and then obviously it is up to you, the community, to decide how close to Squad you think it is and how different it is. But to us, it is, the root is definitely Squad, but we made our own game based on what we wanted. And yeah, that's pretty much what we did.
Awesome. And we got a sense of the timeline based off what you said moments ago. And here we are staring at the release of Chapter 3. What is it that you guys have done up to this point that has kind of been really significant? What have been the major development milestones, if you will?
From day one, I would split it in a few milestones, at least from my perspective. The first one would be when we started with the PR Project Reality World War II. That would be the first milestone. This is why the project did not die down like many other mods, because start easy, finishing one is quite the opposite. So when we joined forces with Project Reality, that would be the first milestone. The second one would be the trailer, the reveal to the community, to the Squad community at the time. That would be the second big milestone. Then the next one would be us going our own way, making our own studio and becoming full-time employees. Then in the back end, things you would not have seen, the next big milestone for me would be the day we finally had money from our publisher to actually pay salaries.
Yeah, oh my gosh,
something you guys would see, but for me that was a big milestone, being able to get the team paid. That was a very big milestone, and you'd think that was a long before release, and trust me, we signed paperwork like within a few weeks or maybe within a few days of you guys having the game on Steam.
Oh my gosh.
So that was a very stressful time, but again, now it's just a good story, but that was very stressful. Then the next milestone would be obviously the Steam release, having your game on Steam, and you refresh the page and you see your game in the top selling. And as a gamer, I wasn't working in video games in the past. None of us were. We are all amateurs. And yeah, seeing our game in the top sellers on Steam, that was very, very good. Then the next big one would be the Americans when we released Valmolen. I think that was November 2018. That was 2-3 months into release. And then the following, we had Vegel and Grave and all the chapter 1's map that we still have and then we announced that chapter 2 was going to be France for free with a very big trailer, because we are very happy we recruited Robert Stoneman. Some of you already know him. He's made a lot of trailers, and he delivered top quality content on this chapter 2 trailer. And we were very happy of releasing France, because you guys have never seen this before. And I think we are one of the only FPS games to ever represent that aspect of World War II.
Sure.
So that is something I was very proud of. First of all, because I'm French and I really wanted to represent my own country in World War II. It was a very quick war, but there's more depth to it than just Dunkirk, like a lot of people know.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty big. And then we announced chapter 3 being Normandy and the full Band of Brothers experience. And again, for free. So that is something we are very proud of, being able to push out so much content, and for a €27 game, that is something we are really proud of.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. There's clearly a commitment to historical accuracy. You talked about the Battle of France, and of course, chapter 1 was Market Garden. How is it that you guys managed to achieve this level of historical accuracy? Do you have a historian on the staff? Or are you just doing research? And so, yeah, how do you go about doing that?
Depends on when we were in production. At the very beginning, when we started chapter 1, which was Market Garden, I mean, we'd never called it chapter 1, because for us it was supposed to be and that's it. That's the €27 game, and we would have left it at that. But then we got crazy and we added more and more. But at that time, when we were a mod and we started to have money, we had one Dutch guy. He was working in a museum, not Arnhem Museum, but I forgot what museum he was working on, but that guy was a history buff, very into World War II, especially market. So he helped us a lot, did a lot of research. So did we. I mean, sometimes it can be a basic research, low-level Wikipedia. Sometimes it's a bit deeper into books or, veterans' books and histories and things like this. And then as we moved on, it was mostly internet searches, some books, and we went to a few museums in France as well, took pictures, asked the people in charge of museums if they had any stories or any insight they could share with us. That's something I did when I went to the Resistance Museum to do the first airborne uniform photogrammetry. And yeah, they gave us a lot of information, the colors of parachutes based on what they're parachuting, if it was supplies or infantry and so on, things I didn't know about. And also more recently, I would say for the past 12 months, we've also relied a lot on our community. I think a game so much about historical accuracy, it brings a lot of history buffs, and sometimes we do something and people realize it's wrong, they tell us. Most of the time through Snazzy being the buffer between us and the community. We interact with the community, but Snazzy is really the middleman. And yeah, that allows us to fix mistakes we've made, and sometimes there are mistakes, quote unquote, that we would do on purpose because of the balance, but sometimes it's just something that went over our head and we didn't know about.
Yeah, when we look at historically accurate, especially with Post Scriptum, we have to take that with a bit of a grain of salt. We have to be very careful when we say historically accurate, just because I would argue you can never make a video game historically accurate. There's no such thing. So there always has to be some caveat, something to take away from it. And a game can still be historically accurate even if it's not,
I would say it's
perfectly. Yeah. It is. It's appropriate. It's historically appropriate, if you will.
Sure. Okay.
And so we have to take it with a bit of a grain of salt, especially when we have people coming and talking to us about, we're making historically inaccurate decisions. Some of them are intentional, others are not, and it's kind of where I come into the picture. We have to figure out, is it intentional, or is this something we're going to fix? And if we're going to fix, when we're going to fix it, because some things are bigger than others. And so for us, it's important for us to respect history and get things as correct as we can. But obviously there's a limit to how accurate we can get.
Yeah, and I think that leads perfectly into the next question with, if you're trying to make a game that is historically relevant or reasonably accurate, as you say, does balance become an issue? And I think you already kind of answered that partially, but how do you compensate? So whenever you have a German K98 going against a Thompson submachine gun, whenever these kind of imbalances naturally in the game, what sort of stuff do you do to make it work on the battlefield and in the game?
Historical accuracy versus authenticity. We have to again take with a bit of a grain of salt, because Post Scriptum, for all intents and purposes, is a historically authentic game. It offers an experience in which you are getting as close as you can to the setting, the people, the time period, and how things went down.
Okay, so we've fought our way through Operation Market Garden in Chapter 1, the Battle of France in Chapter 2, and now you guys recently announced that the invasion of Normandy is upon us. What can players expect from Chapter 3, Day of Days?
Well, pretty much the PS experience, so that would be D-Day. So a lot of people wondered why Chapter 2 was so much of an unknown theater and Chapter 3 was so much, D-Day is obviously your go-to theater when you make a multiple reasons that we went for Normandy. The first one is we love it. I'm personally a huge fan of Band of Brothers and all of those movies from the late 90s, early. So it's definitely what if, because everyone recognized PS as a very immersive game in terms of gameplay experience and how PTSD PS is. So it was like, what if we do Normandy, but we don't try to mimic what other games have been doing for the past 20 years? What if we just do Normandy the PS way, which is the hardcore way? We don't take your hand and show you how to play the game. It's just, we just throw you right in the battle and up you go. So that is the reason we decided to do Normandy. It is the obvious, but it's going to be made our way, and that is something we are really excited about.
Awesome. And you guys talked about Stoneman earlier, and his trailer absolutely was stunning. And I think we all noticed that certain shot from outside of Carentan, and you referenced Band of Brothers moments ago. Will we be playing as Easy Company from the 2506 PIR?
It won't be specified on the faction. When you select the team, it will say you are the 101st or the 82nd or the 4th Ranger if you are in Utah. We don't have markings on helmets because that is opening another box that we do not want to open in terms of historical accuracy. A lot of technical issues or complication that would imply on our end. So you can role play as as Easy Company if you want, but the markings on the helmet will not reflect that. But it is the invasion of Carentan on that day. So technically, yes.
Awesome. And I know you kind of alluded to this moments ago, but other games have attempted, the Normandy beach landings before. We haven't seen a whole lot of Utah beach, but whenever other games have attempted to do this, they've done it to kind of varying degrees of success. I imagine that there's kind of a balanced challenge to deliver an authentic and exciting experience and still make it fun to play. So how did you guys go about achieving that kind of immersive, gritty experience without just getting, fragged over and over again?
It's super tricky because, for instance, if you look at the opening scene from Private Ryan, what makes it hardcore and what makes it dangerous is how many people die. Like how much. As soon as the gate open, you already have like 5 people being killed, and that is really how you get the power of that scene. You can't really do that in a game because everyone is a player, and if 5 guys died, it might be immersive for the last 2 in the boat, but it's not immersive for the first 5 who got mowed down by an MG42 or MG34. So it's a very fine line between being that hectic battle scene that you would expect of Omaha, of Utah, or all of those 5 beach. It's a fine line, and for us, I think it's not yet quite clear how it's going to play out when the game is public, because when we do internal testing, we are playing with very experienced players who have been testing with us for many, many months, years for a few of them. So I think this one will be, you guys will have to make up your own mind on how intense you think it is, and we will definitely balance it if we realize that it's just too hard or too easy, or we will just balance as we go along with massive testing when the build is released.
Sure.
Yeah, like we said, in terms of balancing, especially to get that immersive experience, Breiz is entirely correct in the fact that it's a very fine line to get it where it's both an immersive experience but also a fun experience, because we could make it immersive, no problem, but it also needs to be a fun experience for both sides. It can't just be, people dying before they get off the boats, which was the case at the beginning. And then we make tweaks, and we keep making tweaks until we feel it's in a position where we believe that this not only it gives the immersion that we want, but it also gives everyone a fair chance and make sure that everyone can still play the game mode as it's intended, because it's not just about running off a boat and being shot. It is actually about doing something once you get off those boats as well. So it's a bit tricky to try and balance, and it's one of those things that, like Breiz said, we'll have to go with once we release as well. And nothing is entirely final. Like, there are still things we can tweak here and there as we get player and community feedback back from the actual players, because we do have very experienced players. And so the testing environment that we sometimes play in are not always indicative of how it will function in a live environment. So,
and the thing is, in my experience and what happened in past tests in Utah, what made me, grip to my chair or to my keyboard was almost being shot. MG42 opening on me but missing is, I think, where the key is if you want to have a gaming experience that is immersive. If you want a movie experience like Private Ryan, you have to kill a lot of people. You have someone looking for his arm, you have someone blowing up, you have one guy pulling half another guy. For a movie that works, but here you are an actor, you are going to play in the game. So my guess, and that's why we had it a bit more cover, is almost being shot is where it's at. I think that's the key element that we are nailing at the moment.
Definitely. Yeah. And playing dangerously and wanting to run up the beach. I mean, you can definitely run straight up the beach and get shot if that's what your cup of tea. But there's also opportunity to make sure that you get in cover and you can move around on the beach, and you smoke and that kind of thing. So it opens up a lot more tactics than you'd assume, that just running across. And there's a lot of trickery we can do as well in terms of, random artillery fire and, other ambient stuff that can also enhance the experience. It doesn't just have to be all player interactions. We can manipulate the environment to give the same experience. Random machine gun fire is what we did at some of the earliest stages, where we just had static machine guns that were just swiveling around. They would just shoot aimlessly, not at you, but just around you. And so those kind of things help give you that immersive experience to compensate for some of the things that we have to take away, like being killed all the time.
But coming back to this, when you land on the beach, except mortars and some artillery, there is no bullets flying toward you that are not coming from players. So you can hear some distant gunshots, let's say that is 2, 3, 4 kilometers away from another beach or from inland. So you would have like a tiny bit of audio in the background, but you would know instantly what is from your actual battlefield and what is from another, like fake audio background, but nothing will shoot at you that is not from a player.
Okay. No, I mean, it sounds like you guys have really spent a lot of time thinking about that, and the community is going to be, I think, excited and pleased to hear that explanation.
We all play. I guess you did too. I mean, I've started with Battlefield 1942 on Omaha, and all Project Reality and all of those games, Omaha and Utah and maybe other maps, we've been done in the past 20 years. So we were trying to get what was fun in each and all under one PS big idea.
That's awesome. The Snazzy, you recently released a little clip introducing the Tiger II German main battle tank to the community, which obviously has the hype train going full speed ahead. Have the Allies been able to overcome that thing in testing? Is it as strong as we all think it is?
Now, the Tiger II, while historically it and in game it has 150 millimeter upper plate that's sloped, and a lower plate of about 100 millimeters that's also sloped, it is not impenetrable. It's not unkillable by any means. It can be killed, but obviously it's one of those tanks that you probably wouldn't want to fight head on. I would advise against it, and that's we want to. In the past, we've said we didn't want to add the King Tiger, and much of that was balancing because it's hard to balance such a vehicle within the game. But the more we thought about it and the more we kind of realized that there's more than one way to kill a tank. Doesn't just have to be tank on tank combat. And it usually never is. We've seen that, the King Tiger is not unkillable by any means. Far from it. I mean, Piats and rockets can kill the tank and destroy it.
In my opinion, yeah, the King Tiger is a bit like the B1. The B1 in 1940, it's the equivalent. Not everything can kill the B1, but it is still killable.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, the just the little rendered gameplay or the rendered presentation of the tank made it look awesome. I know a lot of people are excited to get into it, and there's plenty of people who play Post Scriptum strictly for its incredible vehicle combat, and there's a lot of people excited to get their hands on it.
And there will be occasions where you'll end up on a map where the King Tiger spawns, and you might have a tank like the M4A3 Sherman, and you literally cannot kill it from the front. There's no way. You're just not going to. That's just going to be the reality for some vehicles. And some will say, well, that's poor balancing. No, it's not, because then you have rockets, you have Piats, you have all these other weapons that can aid in killing it. Plus, it's not killable if you hit the sides and the rear. It's not an invincible tank by any means. But if you decide to go head on with the tank, I mean, that should speak volumes in itself, right?
Yeah, you're going to pay for it.
Definitely. So while we've put a lot of focus on making sure that all tanks are balanced and you can kill all the tanks, with the B1 Biz especially, I think we kind of went back and were like, we don't have to balance all the tanks. Some tanks have natural weaknesses. Some tanks have natural strengths. And the King Tiger being a really, really big tank, a very big tank, in fact, it's not really easy to hide anywhere. You can't really hide it anywhere. It's like a building. It's not really something you can just hide like you can with some other
park
things.
in a bush. Yeah
But
exactly.
Circling back on balancing, to be honest, for the past 4 years, I think I can count on the fingers of one hand how many things we balanced. I mean, I've done most of the values on tanks and the penetrations and all those curves. I don't remember balancing much. It's just pure raw data into the game, and then the simulation takes over, and that's it. It's almost the sandbox approach. Like you said, the Core 98, it only have 5 rounds, and you have to bolt between each, and the Lee Enfield bolts a lot faster, and you have 10 bullets. That's it. That's just the way it is, and that's the PS way of doing things. Is we get value, we see how fast it is, we make it that fast, and make the best of it.
Yeah, some things we balance intentionally. Some things we make intentional changes here and there, especially with terrain and maps. We sometimes take liberties to make sure that you can get across. Arnhem is a good example with the pontoon bridges, right? Sometimes we divert a little bit from the historical accuracy if it favors the gameplay.
Or if it's April Fool's Day.
Yeah, so it's not always just a slaughter. But I mean, technically, it is still a balance. It's just a natural balance. It's just we're just taking real life stuff and just tossing it in there, and players themselves find a balance. We don't even have to help them. We just have to tell them, what's the armor like on the different vehicles, and then tell them what's the penetration like on the different rounds, and they will figure it out on their own. They will figure out where can they go through, what can and can't they pen. So it's a natural balance. It's not forced. We're not forcing either tanks to be weaker and stronger. They have their historical values that they should have, and obviously we're trying to optimize the balance in terms of making sure there's no weird angles where rounds can go through, and stuff like that, like small stuff. But the general balance is very natural.
Yeah, I think the natural balance is an excellent point. I don't play a ton of vehicle, but I play a lot of infantry, and I do find myself, if I have a K98, taking the extra second to make sure my bayonet's on, or maybe frag a room before I enter the room. Whereas if I have an M1, I'm more aggressive and I get in there and fire as needed. So I think that's a very valid point.
And that natural balance doesn't just encompass vehicles; it goes to the infantry as well. Like we said, the Lee Enfield the way the bolt is made, you can bolt that rifle a lot faster than you can a Car 98. That's just how the rifle is made. It's just made that way, so it's made easier to bolt. It has more rounds naturally. That's a natural balance.
Not historical accuracy, but it's just how it is. That's it.
Yeah. And it's a natural balance. It balances out perfectly with some of the other factions like the Germans, who favors a lot of automatic weapons. They do. They have a lot of semi-automatic weapons and fully automatic weapons. Same with the Americans. They have a lot of semi-automatic weapons and they have a few fully automatic weapons. And so it naturally balances each other out. It doesn't favor either, and we will never ever favor any team, any faction, any country. It's just
awesome.
Just pure data. That's all it is.
Awesome. And so I keep tabs on the development roadmap. I think a lot of us do, and appreciate that you guys keep that thing up to date. Obviously, the near-term focus is Chapter 3, getting it rolled out. But what can you tell us about what's next? We still got a third map for Chapter 2 kind of on the horizon. You guys have hinted at possible new game modes or anything else that you can share with us now?
So, well, we can share the third map for Chapter 2. This one is still definitely on the table. This is not something we've cancelled. It's just we are a small company, small team, so we can't be everywhere. So while someone is working in Utah is not working on that map. That's pretty much how it is. We don't have one level designer per map. So if we have 12 maps, we don't have 12 level designers. So when one is complete and shipped, then that person can switch back to that other map. So that one is definitely coming. In terms of game modes, well, we still have Sandbox coming up. That one requires a lot of coding, and all coders were extremely busy with Chapter 2 and, well, with 421 upgrade, then they get busy with Chapter 2, and then they get busy with Chapter 3. So it's always a matter of resource, and we are slowly going to have more resources available, which will allow us to get Sandbox out most likely this year, yes.
Yeah. The community is often, they keep telling us, when are we going to get samples? When are we going to get the SDK? When are we going to get these things that we essentially promised people all the way back in launch. We promised these things a long time ago, but development happened. Being a small team and not an overly experienced team, stuff happens that makes delays happen. And with Chapter 3 over and no plans, at least for the time being, to expand on it, we might expand on it later if if the effort is there and if it's worth the time and effort for us to do more. Then we might even consider doing a fourth chapter. We can't say yes or no to that, just because we need to kind of look at where are we once we've got some of the other things out of the way. Because now after Chapter 3, we need to get the third map out for Chapter 2, and then we need to get the new territory control game mode.
The thing is, you talked about promises. We did made a lot of promises, and we've delivered on almost all of them. The thing is, since we're gamers, and for instance, gore, we never ever planned on making gore. This is not something we've planned. This is something we excluded early on. And one of our developer come up with hey, I made a little prototype, and it's like, oh shit, that's awesome. Let's do it. So while we do this, we're not doing something else. Yeah. And that's been our story for the past 3 years, is we think as gamers that would be really cool. And then we do it, we add it, and that's how our game get bigger and bigger and bigger. In the meantime, something we promised 2-3 years ago, like Sandbox, then it got delayed because we've been doing so much in between. Chapter 3 was never ever planned. Chapter 2 was never ever planned as well. Even the American on Market Garden wasn't planned. It all came out of passion, and we realized we had the resource to do it, and we just put more and more work on ourselves. I'm not complaining. We did that on purpose. We knew what we were doing at the time, but this is why Sandbox and SDK get delayed and delayed. It's just because we keep thinking of cool stuff to do in between and keep doing them.
Yeah. And another natural, I guess it's a natural accident, you could call it. When it comes to Sandbox and when it comes to the SDK, in some regards, it's probably best that we didn't release it, though, when we promised we would, because then we would have to have dealt with, upgrading it and keeping it up to par with everything else that happens in development. So for us, it's a little easier once we've got all the chapters out of the way, once we've got all the main content out of the way, then we can start focusing on these community features that allow players to expand the experience further without our intervention and without us needing to constantly update and keep updating these tools all the time, because that would have been the natural the natural progression, is that we would have had to maintain and update the sandbox and SDK all throughout development, and that's a lot of work, especially as Breiz said, the coding time that it takes to make something like sandbox itself it's a lot of work. So once we've got the chaps out of the way, it's just a natural progression that now we can start focusing on all the stuff that we need for the community. Stuff like the Archon integration, polishing, and stuff we wanted to do for the game, but we haven't had time to, or haven't had a reasonable amount of people to do. Those things we can look at doing now and start really polishing the product now that we've got all that main content out.
Yeah, one thing because we remembered when we started, when the game released, even in August 2018, was quite a rough launch for many factors. One of those factors was people have very high expectations based on AAA games that exist. At the time, I think we were 2 or 3 months before Battlefield 5 released. And yeah, I think at that time people had a hard time understanding the difference between an indie developer and a AAA developer. Those guys were like 300, maybe 500 employees. At that time, we were 9 in our team. So yeah, we can only do what 9 people do.
Yeah, I mean, my expectations and anticipation is put at ease, just knowing that you guys are, you come from a modder kind of passion programmer background. So everything that makes it into this game is going to be something that you guys love and think is the right thing to do, and I trust that. And I'm sure you guys saw one of my comments when I saw the Chapter 3 reveal trailer was, I'm glad that Normandy came third, because you guys have had 2 full repetitions of development and the 4.21 upgrade, and are now, in my assessment, postured to create something really special in Chapter 3. And so with that in mind, when can we get our hands on it, and kind of tell us what we can anticipate this weekend and all that sort of stuff?
Definitely. So Chapter 3, as the trailer aptly tells you, you can get your hands on Chapter 3 on April the 23rd, which is on Thursday. And the day before that, the April 22nd, we'll have like a first look event where creators can come and have a look at Chapter 3 prior to the release. And that also kind of gives everyone like a look into what they can expect when Chapter 3 drops. But you can expect new maps, new vehicles, new factions, and a whole lot more. I don't want to say too much because we do have a dev blog coming this week as well, which will detail what is coming and all those goodies. So
great. And you guys are also doing initial.
Yeah.
Okay, and you guys are also doing an initial sale this weekend, correct? From the 23rd
Definitely.
to the 27th.
From the 23rd to the 27th, there will be a 25% sale. And from the 23rd to the 26th, that's the Sunday, there will be a free weekend. So people who don't own the game can hop in and try it out for free and decide whether or not it's worth their time.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate both you guys spending time on what I know is an incredibly busy week for you and the folks at Periscope to come talk to us. And look forward to checking out the first look event on Wednesday, and really looking forward to checking out Chapter 3 this weekend.
Awesome. We'll see you on Wednesday then.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Crafts.
Yeah, man. I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks so much.
See you later.
See ya.
Thanks again to Snazzy and to Breiz for being so generous with their time. If you guys enjoyed this, I hope that you'll consider subscribing to the channel and joining our Discord server to stay up to date on all the latest Post Scriptum news and to find awesome squads of guys to play with. I'm Controlled Pairs. I play the most immersive PC games in the world, and I'll see you in the next one.